Now, top story. The governor, Nyesom Wike faction, though the PDP saying there's no faction, has pulled out of the campaign council of the party's presidential candidate Atiku Abubakar. While in a swift reaction, Atiku urged the aggrieved party chieftains to have a rethink and retrace their steps. Let's further deepen the discussion now. A spokesman for the Atiku Abubakar campaign organization, Charles Aniagwu, and Arise analyst Frank Tietie both join us on the program tonight. Let me begin with you, Charles Aniagwu. Did you see this coming? Did Atiku really see this coming? And what does the Wike pull out from the presidential campaign council of Atiku mean for his dream moving forward? When he says it's time to move on, can he really move on? Can the PDP move on from here?
Viewer, you have asked whether we saw it coming. Of course, don't forget that this is an ongoing issue. It's not as if we've announced any break from this issue. It's an issue that has been ongoing, trying to see how we can deal with issues of perception as to the structure of the party. And like Olobodin pointed out, we don't have any faction in the party. You just have a group. And don't forget that the wheel of democracy actually grinds and grinds slowly. And one of the ingredients of democracy is ability to generate a number of sounds. It is only when such sounds become like noise that you begin to get worried. We are still believing that the sound that is coming out is still within the bounds of democratic processes, where individuals are given the latitude to be able to ventilate their grievances and possibly express their views with respect to issues that affect them and how they see those issues. So as a party, we are quite comfortable that in the course of time, these issues will give way for everybody to be on board. Atiku is not just looking for individuals who are coming to vote. Atiku is looking for how to unite every member of the party and by extension Nigeria, so that at the end of the day, he would have been able to carry everybody along. It's not. I get that
point, but when he says definitively that it's time to move on, it almost puts a finality to any attempt to, further seek some kind of rapprochement with Wike.
Atiku is not saying it's time to move on because he wants to move on and leave anybody behind. He's asking members of the party that it's time for them to move on, for us to begin to talk about those issues that affect Nigerians. Don't forget, there are a whole lot of issues that affect us today as a people in this country. And so Atiku saying that it's time to move on means that every hands need to be on deck for us to be able to carry Nigerians along and be able to address those many challenges that confront every Nigerian in their everyday life today. So for those who may be thinking that it's a question of leaving behind some other persons in the party, that is not the case. It's a question of asking everybody to come on board. And we are quite optimistic that in the course of time, everybody will indeed be on board.
Let me bring in Frank here. Frank, earlier on I was speaking to Kola Olobodin, and I did state, of course, taking a quote from Atiku there, talking about the fact that the party's constitution must be followed and Ayu's removal is personal. He also did mention that the party really is interested in putting the interest of Nigerians forward. I'm going to throw that same question to you. Then say, Ayu's removal has nothing really to do with the constitution. So I'm not going to ask that question if you think Atiku has any legitimate right to quote the constitution when it comes to the removal of, Ayu. But when we talk about this so-called national interest, do you not think it's time to set the constitution aside, or do you think it has to be followed to the letter? Talking about the party's constitution here.
Oh yes, I think it would be simplistic to think that the solution to the current PDP crisis is simply for Ayu to step down as national chairman. It's much more than that. Yes, if the issues of zoning were not strictly followed according to the provision of the PDP constitution, then it's expected that there should be some laxity with regards to this call for Ayu to step down. But it goes beyond Ayu stepping down. If Ayu steps down today, it will not solve the problem, because that call for Ayu stepping down appears to be a smokescreen for deeper interest. And what is being demanded by the Wike group is something that is nearly now impossible, considering the fact that a savvy politician like Atiku Abubakar knows full well the implications of handing over a party leadership to a set of persons that have a completely different and divergent interest or pursuit than what he has now. Take a look at the people who are behind the Wike quest. These are persons who have clamored for a Southern presidency, one way or the other. They have actually walked. They were disgruntled, especially when it even turned out that they lost out in the race to the running mate to Atiku. So you want to hand over a party structure as a presidential candidate to persons that have opposing interests to yours, even though they claim to be in the same party with you. So Atiku knows that it is political suicidal to do that kind of thing. Yet, they mask this whole scenario with the fact that they simply want Ayu to step down. It is beyond that, and Atiku knows that it is more than that. It's not something he can attempt to do at this time. I think this group wants more. Now, just recently, a sitting president in the person of Goodluck Jonathan accused his party chairman of being responsible for his loss as an incumbent. You know, his party chairman he accused him of conniving with other northern governors to make sure that he lost to a northern candidate in the person of Muhammadu Buhari. These are recent history. And then you find out that Atiku wants to hand over, wants to ask a sympathetic chairman at this time in the person of Ayu to step down and then give the party to persons who he doesn't know where they will take it to. People who want a Southern president against the fact that they are so entrenched in the call for equity and justice that you have a sitting northern president at this time. Why would you have another northern president? These are the persons you want to hand over power to. Atiku will not do that. And so when you bring in the issue of constitution, he is only taking the constitution as a defense at this time, which of course may help him. But calling for Ayu stepping down, even if Ayu wants to step down today, it will be totally against the interest of Atiku. It's too risky for him to be here.
So, Charles Aniagwu, is it a case of, yeah, when the constitution of the party suits me, it's fine. When it doesn't, well, we go the other way. Is that what it is? And, you know, the same question that we asked previous guests, Kola Olagbondi, former spokesman of the PDP. Restructure the PDP first. And, I mean, if you want to restructure Nigeria, that was the point made by Jerry Gana, a respected PDP member. Why is Atiku insistent on keeping Ayu?
Well, for far too long, we have sacrificed due process and the principles of the rule of law on the altar of convenience. It is always easy for you to ask individuals to take actions, even when those actions negate the provisions of their constitution or the rules that governs engagement within such groups. And at the end of the day, you create monsters or be able to put in place leaders who at the end of the day becomes very autocratic. When you ask a presidential candidate to move ahead to remove a man that was elected based on the rules of the party, and then you ask him to ignore the processes that are provided for in that law, you are more or less saying that manner is far above the provisions of that law. That have continued to happen across different spectrum in our country, where we expect that leaders should just take the position of what the law prescribes. And at the end of the day, when those leaders progress in error, will be the same person, will be the same individual that will come and begin to say, why is he doing this? Why ab initio? Because of convenience, we ask them to do what is not right. Now, on these issues of even what the law provides, I mentioned it the last time I came here, that the law is very, very clear on who takes over even if Ayu steps down. And that the positions in the PDP is so arranged in a more hierarchical form that you must be able to tinker with all of those. And those who are asking Ayu to step down and for the power to move would have been able to also provide other solutions as to what will happen to the deputy national chairman, who today is from the same region as Ayu. If in the event, like I said, they are able to solve that puzzle, what happens to the position of the national secretary of the party? Yeah, but
their argument, Charles, let me quickly bring this in. There were several meetings, both in Asaba, then Enugu, and a few other places where the decision by the southern governors was, hey, power needs to shift to the south, and I'm talking about the PDP governors now, that decision was made. As a matter of fact, Southwest Forum of the PDP, they're saying the Atiku Okowa ticket is a betrayal of the agreement that was made that power should move to the south. So maybe if the power had not stayed or gone to the north with Atiku, we may not be here now.
No, I think it's better we don't model up the arguments, because I've seen a whole lot of mistakes about this argument with respect to power rotation or power shift. Now, the meeting that I had in Asaba is a meeting between both members of the APC and members of the PDP. And so that was not just exclusively the members of the PDP. Now, in the case of those who are saying that the PDP went against the provision of the laws of the PDP, that's not true. The PDP constitution says power will need to rotate between the north and the south. Note, power, not candidacy. As we speak today, Atiku doesn't have power. Atiku is only a candidate of the party. And so the last man that had the power within the PDP was the person of Goodluck Jonathan as the last president of the party of the PDP. So in which case that power was in the south. What happened in 2019 was that somebody who was from the north, and in this case Atiku, was just a candidate. That power did not return in the PDP to the north. You cannot use what is happening in the APC having their president in the north to justify what should happen in the PDP, because the PDP is made up of members from the south as well as members from the north. So the PDP has not gone against its constitution, except you need to now go back and tinker with that provision of the constitution as to say, if you contest and you don't win, it means you have tried your best. That way you can begin to say somebody did not obey the principles of what is stated in the constitution. The PDP leadership have not gone against the provision of the constitution, and I stand to be corrected.
I guess we're going to have to leave it at that point. Of course, it is open to all sorts of interpretation. Well, we've been speaking to the spokesman for the Atiku Abubakar campaign organization, Charles Aniagwu, and a RISE analyst, Frank Tietie. Thank you so much for joining us, gentlemen.